Hi, I'm Sandi Genovese, and we're going back to school today. We're not actually going back to school, but we're going to be looking at how to create a layout using your kids' school photos. If you look at the one I have here, I have actually several of my sister's school photos on this one page. And the reason that it's not obvious is because they're tucked into this pocket. So if you look at the page itself, I tried to use elements that reminded me of school. There's an apple, there's alphabet, numbers, notebook paper, stickers that are actually pencils and crayons. But the thing that features the photos is in this pocket. Now I have this in a page protector. I'm going to show you how easy it is to put the whole project into a page protector and still allow you the versatility of being able to pull out the tags that actually feature Diane's photos. So on this side I have like kindergarten and first grade. I've left room here for second grade because I haven't found it yet, or I may do journaling, and on the back side I continue with more photos and I've got room for more journaling on that as well. So this accordion folded tag fits nicely into this pocket, and it is the only part that is exposed. Everything else sits in this page protector. Now to begin with, we want to look at the background or the background paper. So here is the paper that I used, and I picked a paper that reminded me of school. It has graphics of letters and numbers and that sort of thing. However, if you don't have this paper or something like it, here is another paper that also reminds me of school, and it would work great as well. Here is another one that's similar. It still has graphics and the feeling of school for me. However, it's a little less busy, and if that is more to your liking, of course, that would work as well. If you have plain paper but a rubber stamp alphabet or a stencil, you can create a background paper much like this one by rubber stamping the alphabet or rubber stamping numbers, or using a stencil to draw numbers and alphabet letters. So I'm going to use the one that I actually used in my project, but you have lots of choices and lots of options, just depending on what you prefer. Once you have the background paper, it's time to start building. And if I look back at my original one, you'll see that sort of your eye is drawn just a little off center from the middle is the pocket. And before we do the pocket, look at the layers that are sitting behind the pocket. So we're going to start with the bottom layer, which is this notebook paper, because it reminded me so much of school. So what I did was I took just a piece of notebook paper and I tore it out. I left the ripped edge because that reminds me of school, but I have so much going on the paper, I decided that where the holes show and behind these holes, it was good if it just had one solid color. So I've already fastened just some red scrap paper behind there, and then I'm going to mat the whole thing onto a slightly larger piece of black paper. Now my background paper is a 12 by 12 inch square, and I will get out my ruler in just 1 minute and I will measure for you the dimensions of this notebook paper and this mat, just to give you a sense of the dimensions of what I used. So my notebook paper, when it's trimmed, is 5 3/4 by 7 1/2, and then I just have a 1/4 inch larger mat that it all sits on. Once you have this established, this is going to be positioned first. Remember, I always say this, you want more adhesive than this. This is just enough to hold it together for me to build the project so you can see how I made mine. So I wanted this to sit so that it leaves room for the element to feel like it's sort of in the middle, and it can overlap and run off of this section. So I'm going to position this like so, and then I'm going to take just a piece of striped paper that I created. I used all warm colors. I don't know why, I just, for some reason, yellows and oranges and reds, those primary colors, they just kind of remind me of school. And I'm going to position this so that it's placed not exactly in the middle, but in the vicinity. It's almost like I'm setting this down and using it to create almost like a sense of a cross that I'm going to build from the middle in order to create, and I can tell that that guy got on there a little bit crooked, which is easy enough before my adhesive sets up to straighten that out. And at this point then, I'm going to add some of the other elements. Now, I started layering on things like, here is another one of Diane's photos. I think this one might be 8th grade. I'm not 100% sure. So I'm going to mat this, and I'm going to attach this. And I'm using this patterned section here as sort of a guide to see where I want to place this. And I'm going to come down, I don't know, normally I sort of lay it all together before I start gluing it. I have more pattern paper that I'm going to attach. I don't want this line to line up with this paper line. I want it to look more random. So if I need to, I can move the gold this square a little bit, but I'm going to position this like so. Then I have an apple die cut, and I think I'll raise this with a little bit of adhesive. So I've got some foam adhesive on the back of this apple. When I turn it back over, you'll be able to see that I've cut it out of red and green so that I could layer it correctly and have the apple be red and have the stem be green. When you look at the one that I have here, this is actually a fabric sticker that I had from a couple of years ago, so I'm not sure if they're still around, but it's easy enough to do a die cut or a sticker in an apple theme. You won't have any trouble finding something like that. Now, to look at the element in the center, what I have is a pocket. Now, the pocket needs to start with something that will raise it up so that when you slide in the accordion tags, it will slide in easily. That means this has to be raised with some foam adhesive. I started at Staples. I bought a big roll of this foam adhesive, and this is the width it comes. So what I did was cut it into the length I needed, but then I went back and I trimmed it down into these much narrower strips. So my dimensions is 3.5 by 4.5. And then, as I said, I trimmed down the foam adhesive to place it as the backing. Before I fasten it down, use this as a guide in order to see what size to make the accordion tags that are going to slide inside. You want to make sure they're going to fit inside. So the dimensions for this is about 2 7/8 inch wide, because remember, I now have the width of the foam. What I've done is I've just accordion pleated my paper so that it's a rectangle and that the rectangle will slide into this opening. And then I've marked where the middle is, and from there I've come over just a little bit from the center in order to cut a triangle off one side. It is incredibly easy to make a tag shape, and I do the same thing with the other side so that I end up with a tag shape, and it really starts to look like a tab when you go back and put a hole punch in there. And I've used just a 1/4 inch hole punch to create that. So you'll end up then with this cool accordion pleated tag that's basically going to hold the photos. Right now is a good time to go ahead. I'm going to just add in one photo, but you want to add in however many photos that you have that you want to highlight, and you can enlarge or reduce them so they fit. You don't have to just have one per page. That's totally up to you. You would go ahead and add, the other photos on the other pages. And then to make it really simple to pull in and out, I've just taken a little bit of ribbon. Don't do like I did. My ribbon still has these folds in it. Before you put it in your project, iron it. I should have ironed it, and I didn't think to do that. So now I'm kind of stuck showing it to you with those fold marks in it. But I want to only go and put the ribbon through the top layer. So I'm going to go back and do this again. I'll poke this through and pull up the ends of the ribbon, put it through that loop. I'll try to get my hands out of the way so you can see, and then pull it so that you end up with this. Now, this is fairly thin paper. You can also, if you want to, go back, and I used a circle sticker and used the same circle punch in order to create, if you look at this one, and I'll flip it over so you can see the back side as well, that like hole reinforcement is a handy thing to do if you're going to have a lot of wear and tear and pulling on this ribbon. So that's up to you if you want to add that element. Once you have this ready to go, and you can see it's going to fit inside, then it's going to get attached. Now, before you attach it, I think that it's helpful to go back and add these elements. So I took a stencil and I just used, if I lay this down, you can see where's the D. Here is the D in her name, and I went ahead and used the stencil to write Diane, and then I just hand wrote. I even put with a white pen, I put my marks, because that looked to me like kind of school. You had papers that always had lines on it like that. So I went ahead and I did that, and I put the names of the schools that she attended and which grades she was in each school. And I would go ahead and add all those decorations first and then go back, because that way if you do, sometimes I don't mean to, but I spell something wrong. When you handwrite something, you know, you're just thinking about how to spell it as you write it. But when you draw something, you're not paying attention. And a lot of times I will spell something wrong. So I do it first, make sure it's all correct, then go back, pull off the backing like you just saw me do, and go ahead and attach this. And I'm just using this line that I created in the middle to line this up to make sure that it's fairly straight. And then you can see that this now is going to slide into, I'll go ahead and press that down, slide into this, so that I now just have a space here. And if I bring this up, you can see that I use stickers. I'll bring this up so you can see I just use stickers for this element. And here is that pocket. But I told you I was going to show you how you do a page protector when you have an element like this. If I put my hand in here, I hope you can see that I've just cut a slit, and then to keep the slit from tearing, I've punched 2 holes. Let's actually put this into a page protector and go ahead, and I just used an X-Acto knife. You want to make sure that you have a fresh blade that's in good shape and have something to protect underneath where you're going to be cutting. I'm going to just cut, and I don't even have, I think it'll be easier for you to see if I pull this out. So I'm going to just cut right along this line. That's the only place where I need this slit. So using this as a guide, I'm going to take my X-Acto and I'm going to just poke it down, and I'm going to cut through, and I'm just tucked right against the edge of this black in order to get my slit. You can see that I'll make sure that it goes the whole distance. It does. And then all I need to do then is add the little punched hole. Now, the punched hole is easier to do because it really is strong. I'm going to pull out my page, and I'll go ahead and I'll put my cutting pad inside here so I don't cut through the other side of the page protector. And I hope you can see that the 2 places where I'm just going to take my hole punch, and it's my anywhere punch, and I'm going to just punch a hole at the end of each of those, the end of the slit on this end and the end of the slit on this end. This is called a screw punch, and it's the easiest thing in the world. We'll put a link up to places where you can get this. I know Martha Stewart carries them, and this I bought at an art store, but I couldn't live without it. So now I have a slit that is not going to keep sliding. It won't continue to want to slice open. It will just stay, and it will stop right where I stopped it. So when this is tucked in there, now I'm able to go back and to take, using that slit, it lets me slide this in so you can see how easily that goes into that opening. Now, if I go back then and I take the finished one and place this inside that has all the elements on it, you can see how easily this goes together. It's protected because if it's got your kids' photos in it, it's probably going to get used and looked at a lot. But it's also got a whole lot of photos and in a very kind of small space. I love to see how the kids age over the years. You know, with the kids back in school, it's a good time to pull out their school photos and to display them on one single layout just like this.